Hey everybody, welcome back to Retro Modding News, my weekly video where I talk about what's new and upcoming in the world of retro console modding. First up this week, RedHerring has finally released his trimming guide on how to cut down the CPU and PPU to create his portable NES, the TinyTendo. Now I understand that this is an absolutely insane mod and I don't necessarily recommend that you do this yourself, but let's just take a quick peek at this GitHub repository. I'm just going to reiterate his disclaimer here. Trimming these chips is very risky and delicate, and there's a very high chance that you could ruin both the CPU and the PPU and even hurt yourself because there's some power tools involved here. Just scrolling through the pictures here sort of makes me uneasy, like this is some mod gone wrong or something. You're supposed to Dremel off the leg so it's flat like this. And then from there, it looks like you sand the bottom until you see the lead frame and the die. I think the lead frame is what the wires that are sticking out here. This picture is pretty cool actually. Look at all the wires coming out of the die from the middle here. That's kind of cool. And then of course you've got to measure from the middle of where the die actually is on the chip and not just blindly cut in the middle. You're trying to grind this thing down until it's a 10 by 10 millimeter square from the middle. Pretty intense process, but I am going to attempt it. I actually got some pretty affordable Japanese Famicoms, so I'm going to be using the CPU and PPU out of those because I got them for pretty cheap. And eventually I'm going to go through the process of building my own TinyTendo. Next, I want to talk about a BennVenn project that kind of started earlier this year, but it has recently morphed into something much greater than what it originally was. So RayNex in my Discord mentioned that there was going to be a V2 of BennVenn's IPS screen for the Game Gear. I didn't think about it much at the time because I had already done the V1 BennVenn screen. This project, by the way, is called the GGHD now, not to be confused with the GGHD Advanced from Gamebox. The GGHD is this V2 IPS screen from BennVenn. Not only is the screen going to have an integer scale, so you shouldn't have any sort of artifacts or stretching or kind of flickering or anything with the screen, but it will also have an HDMI output too, sort of making the Game Gear its own consolizer. This development has been going on behind the scenes in Discord, but I just looked today and it looks like Math, who is the creator of these aftermarket Game Gear motherboards, it looks like he is sort of helping out BennVenn to create the HDMI port part of that screen. So as you can see here, there's a picture of one of Math's replacement boards in a shell, and there is an HDMI port. It looks like maybe a mini HDMI, I think. Anyways, it's where the extension port normally goes. You could see this picture side by side with the extension port is on the top, and then there is this little PCB that kind of goes over where the expansion port normally goes. That is the HDMI port. And what's even better is it sounds like that little HDMI board will also be compatible with an original motherboard, assuming you've desoldered that extension port. Then it'll have just a little ribbon cable over to BennVenn's screen. Another interesting thing I noticed from this picture here is that this board is using a Tang Nano 9K FPGA, which is the same FPGA that Zwenergy is using in his WonderSwan new consolizer. So I know that was a lot of information. The pre-orders for this had already started way back in January of this year, but I think there's going to be more waves of this thing after the initial development and initial testing of phase 1 is completed. So just hold on tight and we'll get some more information from BennVenn about this new screen. I don't have a lot of information about this next story, but Christopher Siak on Twitter mentioned me and is showing me this picture of a Pico mem card combined with a BlueRetro adapter. So it's all one PCB. It plugs into the PlayStation 1's memory card, but it looks like it doesn't also plug into the PlayStation 1's controller. So somehow the pins on the memory card must be able to go to the PlayStation 1 controller as well. And you can see in this picture here that he's able to use this 8BitDo controller connecting to the PlayStation 1 through just the memory card. This is still a work in progress. There isn't a GitHub repository for it yet, but if anyone knows how this is working, I would love to know more information if you want to leave a comment down below. Next, we've got a quick update from Humble Bazooka. It looks like they're working on a 3DO BlueRetro adapter that they're calling the 3DO BT. If we take a look at the listing here, it looks like it will work with the FC1, FC10, and Gold Star 3DOs. Says that other models are untested, but I'm not sure what other models there are. And somebody asked if you can connect two controllers at the same time with one adapter, and it looks like you can. Does that mean that the 3DO only has one controller port in the front and there's some kind of like a multi-tap going on? I don't really know anything about the 3DO. Sounds like they're gonna be for sale pretty soon, and the ETA is going to be in December. Next is a pretty interesting story from Sebastian Stacks over here on Twitter. They're calling it the GameBoy Interceptor, and it looks like it's going to be a PCB that uses the RP2040, which is the microcontroller from the Raspberry Pi Foundation. Looks like it goes between a cartridge and the Game Boy, an original Game Boy, and allows you to capture footage off of it. There's a little bit more information in the comments down below here, but the first reply from Sebastian is pretty interesting actually. It looks like this project probably will connect directly to a computer via USB, so it's not actually capturing image data from the Game Boy and sending it that way. It looks like it's just capturing communication data from the cartridge and the Game Boy back and forth, sending that to the computer, and the computer is emulating the Game Boy. I think this is a pretty cool idea, and anybody who wants to stream Game Boy, they might be able to have a device pretty soon that allow you to capture footage from an unmodified Game Boy and stream it. So that's awesome. And for the big story this week, we have some cryptic tweets from both 8BitMods as well as LaserBear. So 8BitMods teased this picture. It looks like they're teasing an upcoming MemCard PRO that they probably already haven't announced yet. Just based on the fact that it says memory card 1A here, a couple of people in the comments guessed that this is going to be for the Dreamcast. It gets even weirder. 8BitMods responded with another video showing a 8BitDo controller, so this is connected through Bluetooth, connected to this Dreamcast. A little bit further on here, you can also see them loading a game, but how could they connect a VMU? There's no Dreamcast controller connected here. It all kind of comes together when Greg from LaserBear responded to that video saying that they have something brewing with 8BitMods. So to me, it sounds like this is going to be a combination BlueRetro controller replacement mod for the Dreamcast that includes some kind of VMU integration, some kind of MemCard PRO functionality. It makes sense now why they're putting so much effort into recreating the Dreamcast controller ports. I misreported that a few weeks ago and said that those were GameCube ports. Those are Dreamcast ports. So they're trying to create aftermarket Dreamcast controller ports. So I'm guessing that this is going to be a drop-in replacement for the Dreamcast that has some kind of emulated VMU support as well as BlueRetro built in. Now I know that 8BitMods has an announcement scheduled for this coming Friday, so we'll know more information probably then about what this is actually going to end up being. That's it for this week, but check out this video where we take a first look at the upcoming PS2 digital mod from Pixel Effects.